Welcome to this presentation by the people that you see here in this interface. We're excited to present to you what has gone on with the Evergreen Project's 2025 until 2028, the 20s, strategic plan. But before we do that, we do need to say thank you loudly and enthusiastically to our champion level sponsors. We have Unique, who we just had I had the joy of hearing talk in the vendor lightning talks. We have Stat Courier, Midwest Tape, Equinox Open Library Initiative, and the thing that makes me wake up at night, whether it's good or bad, the Evergreen Collaborative Development Initiative. Big heart that you can't see because the camera's off. Thank you to all of our champion sponsors. We couldn't have the conference without them. Okay, I'm going to change, not my screen share, because look what I did. That quick. All right. This session is going to be about the strategic plan, and if you are like me or not like me, well, if you know this about me, I love strategic plans because, as you have noticed, I can go on rabbit trails very, very easily. And one of the things that a strategic plan does for me is it brings me back and tells me what I need to be paying attention to. And so when we had the opportunity with the Evergreen Project to go through this process, I was very excited. I want to say thank you to Kathy. I always say Lucier in my head.
Lucier.
I know what it is, but I say it different in my head. From Noble and Andrea. You have Andrea Bunce, is it? But Andrea Bunce-Nyman from Equinox for presenting with me today. This is our agenda. I'm not going to read through because we're going to hit all of these things, but you can see what the course of this presentation is going to be. It is going to be a little bit quick. We're not going to talk about everything that we talked about in the 2+ years that it took to get to this presentation. Before we go too far, there needs to be a shout out to everybody that was involved. It was not one committee, it was not one subcommittee, it was not one person. It was, I want to pick a number and I would be wrong. The Evergreen Project Board, the Strategic Plan Subcommittee, Carson Block Consulting, the Membership Model Subcommittee, and currently the Strategic Plan Implementation Subcommittee. To have all of the names, and honestly, now I'm thinking I regret, there should have been a slide that just listed all of the names so that you could see how many people were a part of this. You will hear people who talk about it a lot. I'm one of them, but that does not mean that I did the lion's share of work. I just talk a lot. There was so much work done by other people, and I'm so proud to be part of this project with them and so impressed by what we were able to do together. Also, just a reminder to my co-presenters, at any point, just interrupt me. Okay, I'm looking at their faces. Just a brief history of Evergreen, the ILS, and the Evergreen Project. Most of you know that the ILS started in Georgia. There's a whole white paper about this, and I know that Chris Sharp, if he's in here, he has that link easily handy about the origins of the ILS and how Evergreen came to be an open source project. that meant that it wasn't just this bespoke thing for Georgia, but then became the thing that I'm going to say almost all of us here use or are investigating. As that became a project, it became evident there was a need for oversight. If we're working on this, there has to be some mechanism that people can collaborate. You can talk between developers and libraries and those types of things. And so that has evolved over the years. And it eventually led to the formation of the Evergreen Project. That's the legal name. That's why there's a capital T there, which is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, and that happened in 2018. Part of that involved, of course, the drafting of articles of incorporation, bylaws, and all of the things that are necessary when you're forming a nonprofit corporation. In 2022, and I want to stress this too, because there was work done before this happened, and everything that you will see as a quote unquote final project here was built on the shoulders of work that had been done before. There was a strategic plan committee then. That was the first major attempt at this strategic plan, which did include some work also on the bylaws. Then in 2023 and 24, that was the next push, this push to undergo the planning process. And I'm not going to read that slide. You can go back. So I have on here mission and vision, vision and mission. These are not called that specifically in the strategic plan just because we didn't pull them out, but this is what it says in there and also in the bylaws, that the Evergreen Project exists to foster the open source integrated library system and its community of practice. And that is what we had in mind going through all of this. That is the end. That is our focus as we go through all of this. The process was intense, and it started with a survey that was done by the previous strategic plan committee. They had collected a huge body of data that was feedback throughout the community, and the Carson Block Consulting, they were able to go back and like code all of those results, and so that was very important. Then we had great community participation. We had focus groups, feedback sessions, and that was very important. And then we had in the winter of 2024, we had a stakeholder retreat that involved, I'm going to round the number to 25 stakeholders who met for 2 days with Carson Block Consulting, facilitating conversations and work sessions in that. And then there were also interviews to get an external perspective on Evergreen and its organization that supports all of this. I have this quote in here from Charles Eames, who, first of all, I like Charles Eames, but I loved this quote and applying the idea of art also to development. Art resides in the quality of doing. Process is not magic. And that is one of the things that I also want to underscore as we're sharing this with you, that this strategic plan didn't appear out of nowhere. There was a lot of work that went into it, but it is also a very inspirational, I believe, inspirational and exciting product that came out because we did focus on the quality of it, and it's good. So the arc of transformation was something that came out of the conversations between Carson Block and members of the strategic plan subcommittee and others. And as we were describing so many things about the Evergreen Project, about the Evergreen community, things that we love, things that we get angsty about, things that we're excited about. He came up with this metaphor, I guess, a metaphor for the arc of transformation to describe where we're at, where we have been, where we want to go. And so it, here it is, the arc of transformation, where we came from, where we're at right now, and what it will take to continue going forward. So you'll see these things that are present in the strategic plan. A huge shout out to Lindsay Stratton for taking all of these ideas and developing this graphic to describe also the phases of growth for the Evergreen Project. And this is something you'll see it also in the annual report. Is a great, for me, is a great way to have everything in there refer back to and be inspired again and again by how we have transformed and continue to transform. So, and I'm going to actually go back a little bit here. The first thing that we did here was to describe, of course, the history, and you can go back and read that white paper. We have a summary in the strategic plan where this all started from. And then, but we also needed to figure out where we are right now. And so a major part of that was this organizational review. And I'm I'm kind of loath to say specific names because as soon as I say one name, I feel like I'm missing out on this. But Katie and Susan did such great job analyze. Susan Morrison of Pines and Katie Greenleaf Martin of Pales did such great work looking at the current state of things and what led us to this and articulating it. And I am so grateful to them. They looked at bylaws, they looked at committees, they looked at histories and documents and all of those things, and then created some recommendations about what would help the Evergreen Project move forward. And then we also talked about then the resource model, and I'm going to go back. I feel like I need to have all this. So the moving into the future, of course, there are a lot of ideas about what to do. And we did spend the time making sure that we were in line, of course, with that vision there, that we're supporting the development of the Evergreen ILS and its community of practice. But we need resources to do that. And so to say, okay, what resources do we already have and what resources do we not have? And so from that, then we know that from all of those conversations throughout the community that we need to foster this sustainable environment. So we had to come up with a resource model. It was built specifically for that purpose, to foster sustainable and generative environment where the Evergreen Project, I did not capitalize that T, my bad, the Evergreen community and the Evergreen ILS can flourish. There are two major components to that resource model. There is the membership model, and then there's the staffing contributor model. So now we're to the action plan. I'm looking at the time. Yes, we did all of that work, and most of that work has been done. Now we come to this action plan. There are 4 kind of buckets for action here that they are sequential to a large degree. The first being a bylaws update, the next being the implementation of a membership model and or the launching of the contributor program to be determined what that order is there, and then the ability to hire Evergreen Project staff. Um, so I'm going to, Andrea, do you want to talk at all about the bylaws update? You don't have to. I mean, I'll actually, I look at her, she's like, I'm not talking about anything.
I was not prepared to, but I
You
can.
don't have to.
No, I mean, we're updating the bylaws.
Okay.
Um, because of some of the basically what Ruth says on this slide is true that we needed there are some languishing updates that the bylaws needed anyway, and also in order to implement the contributor and membership model required changes to the bylaws, and we're very close to being done with those.
So
We have
close.
been back and forth with a Missouri-based attorney because the Evergreen Project is, of course, a Missouri corporation, to make sure that we're all doing everything the right way. And yeah, it's very exciting. So I expect that we will actually probably be voting on those at this Thursday's Evergreen Project Board if you really want to come join that party. We,
I
the
mean,
board.
please do. Please do. I mean, and one thing to point out regarding the bylaws changes, one consequence will be direct membership. Oh, yes. So I wasn't going to get into like all of those specifics yet, but if you're not reading chat, Galen has a great point there that, and I'm sorry, I have some stacked windows, so let me see if I can scroll down there. One consequence to the bylaws changes is that the um, the elections for the project board will be a direct action of members um, in the Evergreen Project
Right.
organization.
And that's through the membership model and the contributor structure, we have endeavored very hard to make sure that this is not restrictive.
Right.
But it's going to be a little bit of a change from the past, but we're not trying to like kick anybody out or make it harder for somebody to be a member. We're just formalizing some of that more than we
And
usually do.
hoping that it's going to be um, a huge value add for our community members. We talk about community members, but y'all are also professionals. And well, I'm not going to get into that yet because I want to talk about it after Kathy talks about the membership model.
Okay, I'm going to be quick on this, and I'm setting my timer because I was given 5 minutes. So for those who don't know me, I'm Kathy Lucier. I'm the Executive Director of the North of Boston Library Exchange, a consortium of 25 libraries on the North Shore. Prior to being here, though, I am a longtime member of the Evergreen community, and at one time was heavily involved in every aspect of the Evergreen community. And I'm going to stress it really was every aspect, not so much now. I left the community in 2018, or I should just say, just stepped away for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
On the cusp of my return 2 years ago at the Evergreen Conference in Worcester, I did a presentation on burnout in open source communities, which I wrapped up by making the argument that, in my opinion, the Evergreen community had grown to the point where it required a paid staff member whose sole focus is on supporting the community rather than solely relying on our contributors. As wonderful as our contributors were, we need more support. And I also made the argument that if every Evergreen using organization contributed to this effort, hiring staff could be very affordable for all of us. And why do I feel this way? We have contributors who do work for the community in their off hours. This is something that can lead to burnout. We've had projects we've been discussing for years, moving to a new Git hosting service, improving the release building process, improving documentation, and they don't gain traction. And having someone whose job is to focus on the community and trying to make these projects happen is what is going to help move these things forward. My organization, all of our organizations are highly dependent on the future of this software. Paying a membership fee, we're going to get a great return on every dollar we put into investing into the community. So when the project board established a subcommittee to review a potential membership model, and this was happening alongside the strategic planning process, not afterwards, but I immediately stepped up to chair the subcommittee because this is the one thing I wanted to work on when I came back. So we put together a subcommittee of 11 people were on it, and it really was a broad representation of our community. We had consortia, small consortia, large consortia, standalone libraries. We had an academic library, 2 service providers, a Canadian organization. And because we really wanted to have a lot of input into this process. I will also say we had a lot of people on the subcommittee that hadn't really been involved in the Evergreen community to a great extent before. You typically find the usual suspects stepping up, but it was really important because some organizations may not be able to contribute time, but they may be able to contribute funds to the community. We performed an environmental scan of other open source projects, mainly focusing on the library universe, but sometimes stepping outside of it. We also looked at models for library associations, and we conducted an interview with a rep from the Island Door Project because they had a model, they have a community that's similar to ours. What we wanted to establish was an accessible model that reflects the open and transparent culture of this community. Not every open source community in the library universe is as open and transparent as ours are. So some of the things they did in their membership model wouldn't have worked for us. So some of the things, criteria we decided on early on is there needs to be a path to membership for active contributors who can't pay for that membership because we value those labor contributions. We wouldn't require membership if you want to participate on a working group, an interest group, a committee. All of that work we value. You shouldn't need to be a member in order to do that. There was one exception. The project board is something that will be, unless there are, there could be exceptions carved in, but we would be requiring membership to be on the project board and for voting for project board members. Other things, we didn't want to lock up documentation or other community resources behind a membership. There are some benefits, like a quarterly webinar where members are the only ones who would be able to participate in the live webinar, but they would be available to the entire community afterwards. We didn't want to base membership fees on a budget, size of institution. We didn't want to guess at what one organization could contribute. So we've provided multiple tiers. And I'm already at the 5-minute mark, so I will be quick. We ended up with 5 tiers of institutional membership, and they all come with voting individual memberships. It starts at $500, very affordable, and works its way up to $20,000 per year. And it was actually a member, yes, Gary, annually. It was actually a member who requested the $20,000 level because that his organization did not have the labor to contribute, but thought that they could actually pay a little bit more for the annual membership. We'll have individual memberships too. There's one that's a paid one and one that can be gained through the contributor program. Ruth's going to go over that. But my hope and expectation is that it's the organizations that step up with memberships and that the individual ones are more exceptions where you maybe didn't get enough individual membership with your institutional, sorry, the Constitution's been on my mind a lot lately. But the long-term sustainability and growth of this project is critical for your organization. So it really should be the organizations, not the individuals stepping up, in my opinion. To me, institutional membership fees are a small price to pay to ensure the success of this project. When we started, the project board gave us a target to raise $100,000 in the first year. In our final report, and there's a link to the subcommittee, but that has a link, that wiki page has a link to the final report as well. We estimated we could make it to $99,000. That was back in the fall. A lot has changed with the economy since then. But I'm still optimistic. If I think we can get there. If half of the institutions at this conference right now contributed what they can afford, I'm confident we could get to the $99,000. And I just want to say, a well-maintained and sustainable evergreen project will get you through tough budget times better than being locked into a vendor software arrangement because our wonderful open source system didn't get the financial support it needs to keep up. So, and I'm going to pass things over to Ruth to talk about the contributor program, but hopefully we'll have time to respond to any questions you have about the
Absolutely.
membership model.
Kathy, thank you. That was excellent, and I'd have given you more time, but we'll leave it for questions and then go forward. I'm going to click on this. I didn't want to go into detail about the contributor program yet because it really does need to be finalized before we promise a thing. But the idea is it does play into a pathway to individual membership in the community, but it is also something that is separate from that. One of the great resources that we know that we have in this community are people, and we have relied on them, as Kathy said, in a variety of ways. Sometimes because it was part of their job, but oftentimes because it was also just part of their passion. The Evergreen Project does rely on individuals and groups, and we have benefited in many ways, but it has been very ad hoc. And so the contributor program is meant to formalize and expand the contributor structure. It has traditionally been about core committers and docs committers and that type of thing, and to encourage and recognize in tangible ways, and I'll get back to that in a second, the work that is done on behalf of the Evergreen Project, the Evergreen community, and the ILS. The tangible ways, not entirely sure what all those will be, except for it will be formal recognition. And that formal recognition then being something that can go on resumes and can go into reports and things like that, so that those people who are doing the work can be recognized appropriately and gain from what they are doing, other than just, I mean, experience is good and community accolades are good, but taking that recognition out into your professional life is also important. I say out into your professional life, your broader professional life. And then the final thing in the action plan is this idea of hiring dedicated Evergreen Project staff. This was something that came up over and over in the many groups that we met with and conversations that we had, how good it would be, how necessary it was to have somebody whose sole focus was on the Evergreen Project and its community, the community of practice around the Evergreen software, to do organizational things, to promote this, to do those things. And then, of course, you've seen, how do we do that? This is the end goal. One end goal toward the vision is to be able to hire dedicated staff and have this organization become more mature in that manner. Okay. I just had this cool slide. I was like, I'm going to keep that there. You can see this is not a set in stone timeline at all. We have this bylaws update, and that's going to hopefully be cut right off there at the end of Q2 for 2025. And then kind of mentioned that the implementation of the membership model and the launching of the contributor program may be a little bit flexy in which comes first. There is an interplay there. And then, of course, the hiring of the project staff, and then the evaluation, well, the next iteration of a strategic plan. Should say too, strategic plan review, it would be annual review of that, but then what happens next? There are links. There are so many iterations of this, but this is the final strategic plan in PDF form so that it can be printed off, and then the many appendices that go along with it. There are some that are not quite complete, but the strategic plan itself is. And so you can use that in anything that you bring back to your organizations as well. And these slides will be available for you to have access to those active links. The next tangible steps for this are to have some version of this also available on the evergreen-ils.org website. So it will also be an easy reference to that, and the board will be discussing how that plays out exactly. Okay, can I put the links in chat? You betcha. You're going to watch me copy these links though. You can kind of get a sense for what they look like. They're just plain old PDFs. Could have done that a little bit more elegantly, but I didn't. There is a Google Doc of this that has everything linked up much better than the PDFs, but we wanted to have a static copy for when it was approved. Okay, any questions for anybody that is here? And Galen has joined us. Thank you, Galen. Galen Charlton is chair of the Evergreen Project Board and was instrumental in all of this work as well.
So one thing I do want to jump in to say is to reiterate the recommendations that have been made in chat. I highly encourage anybody who is interested in the strategic plan or membership model to consider attending the board meeting this Thursday, and in general to attend board meetings as a way of seeing what's going on. We have a very ambitious agenda as a board for 25-26, in addition to what was just presented. I do want to remind everybody of the tremendously exciting in-person conference in Seattle in 2026, which is both going to be an excellent event, but also is going to be the largest in terms of scale to date. So, I encourage people to think about attending the board meeting, to think about attending the conference, and to always remember that one of the consequences of the membership model will be, in addition to the direct member election of the board members that I mentioned, also perhaps a new opportunity for direct member engagement in project governance, because ultimately the success of the membership model will depend on each of you. So that's it.
Thank you, Galen.
I'll step off my soapbox.
I like your soapbox. It's awesome.
It's very brightly colored.
It is. Any other questions or comments? Well, I'm going to then, we have a couple minutes. I'm going to indulge myself because I can and I have a microphone, and say thank you to the people that you see right here, Andrea and Kathy and Galen, and definitely others this has been a very long process, and I know it may not seem like it, when we have just a few slides and me, a pretty inarticulate presenter, presenting that, but it has been so much work, and but gratifying work, because every time we would come together, we would come out with something to do and come back and fine tune it. And so I'm just so proud of it, and so proud to be part of this group of professionals who has worked with it. And there are so many, I see like so many of you in the chat as well, so thank you for that. And I'm excited about what it means for the Evergreen Project as an organization and the Evergreen software. Let me check real quick. We are at a time, y'all know, where it is a hot mess in the world. And one of the things that we're seeing is just the ideas of empowerment and agency just being ripped away. And one of the things that this software does, the open source mentality does, libraries do, is they counteract all of that hot mess. And we have an opportunity to do something that is practical, that is inspiring, and that when we work at it is going to be sustainable and nurturing for everybody. So that's an exciting thing for me, and I'm very proud to be part of it. Thank you for letting us share with you. And if you have questions, find us. Yeah, Andrea.
It's not a question, it's a comment.
Oh, okay. We can do both. You can do whatever you want.
But I think we also all owe you a big thanks, Ruth, more than I think almost any single other member of this community. This has kind of been your baby. So
it is my baby, but thanks for saying it. But also,
championing this, keeping the flames lit, and helping to create something that is going to be truly the next stage of this.
Truly my pleasure. I'm just so proud of it and so thankful to have been part of it, and all of y'all. All right, there's more stuff going on in this conference, so participate. Love it. We're so glad you're here. Peace.